Hello and welcome back to another episode of Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. My name is Sage, the middle sibling.
I'm Storm, the youngest sibling.
Deshay, the oldest sibling.
For everybody that's not watching this, when we record, there's a little countdown thing, and mine apparently takes a lot longer than everybody else's. So that's what the pause is for, in case you guys ever wondered why we have that
millennial
pause. Yeah.
I was like, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong?
Hey,
I'm
but
just
I
having a
will.
seizure.
I will say there is a very famous, well-known podcast that also uses Riverside, and they also make jokes about their timing being off,
Okay.
like ours
Good.
is.
Good.
And they'll like pause, and they'll be like, "Oh no, you're paused."
Okay.
See,
All right.
it's not. It's Riverside. It's not us. I swear to y'all.
It's not user.
No, like I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Exactly.
Gosh, y'all.
I feel super old all the time. My body just apparently, your body starts deteriorating after you turn 30. Like your body, you're not supposed to live past 40 something, apparently. So
Listen.
Yeah, your body's just nope, it's time. It's happening.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard that humans should be pregnant for way longer than they actually are, but your bodies can't handle it because animals, they come out of the womb pretty much walking.
Yeah.
Or they can walk very shortly after. And humans, I mean, it takes them a long time to be able to feed themselves. And
Right.
Anyway, so they were like, humans should be pregnant for way longer, but our bodies just can't.
Could you imagine being pregnant for a year and a half?
No.
Well, I think, isn't it camels that are pregnant for like 19 months or something crazy? I'm like, God, I couldn't imagine.
I feel like some whales and things like that are pregnant for a long time too.
For a really long time. Yeah. But I'm like, they can't complain because they're in the ocean, and the ocean makes you feel lighter than you actually are. So you need to calm down. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If I was in the ocean the entire time I was pregnant, my belly would not have hurt as bad as it did.
No. Exactly.
I don't think my pelvis would have hurt as bad. Nothing. I just would have been chilling.
Yeah.
I could have breathed easier.
Speaking of the ocean, I don't know why it's most likely because we had a full hour-long conversation about it at the studio the other day. But we've been talking about sharks and whales and stuff recently, and all I'm seeing on TikTok and stuff is shark attacks. Recent, sharks
Absolutely
are coming
not.
up very close, and there's one, and there's a huge sign, and it's shark sighted, do not go in the water, and you see just families just in the water, and I'm like, that's your own fault. That's your own fault at that point.
Yeah, absolutely not. And they were showing those big bull sharks, and they were up in less than a foot of water, and I'm like, dude, that's nutso pants.
It's wild.
This is why I hate the ocean.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, is it almost Shark Week or something? And
it is almost.
Is it? Okay.
July 8th.
Okay. I had no idea. But I was like, maybe that's why I'm seeing it. And I was like, no, it's stuff is happening. Things are happening.
Yeah. But they're probably like, hell yeah, all this free publicity.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
Speaking of old and whale fins, so I've recently just become obsessed with plants, and I think it's my old age, Yeah. And so there's this guy that I follow on Instagram, and he's like a plant person, and his name is Tanner the Planter, and he has a shop in Prosper. He's got a plant shop. Yeah. And so he does these live plant sales where he'll show you the plant, and then you have to whatever. Yeah. You can buy them on the thing. So there was one yesterday. And so, of course, me and Richard were like, what better things to do on a Saturday night than watch a plant sale?
Exactly.
So, anyway, we were watching it, and I will have you know that Richard was the one that had my phone watching it and getting the plants in the cart. It was not me. There was only one that I was like, we need that one. Like, get that one, hurry up and get it. But all the other ones, and he's like, I don't like plants. I just get them because you like them. And I'm like, whatever. Whatever.
You could say
and
that
so,
all the time.
yeah. Anyway, so we were talking about, we get them there, so we have to go pick them up at the store. And I have been talking about this. It's a snake plant, but it's called a whale fin. And it's just one big long plant, and it's really flat, but it's like in the shape of a big fin.
Yeah.
And I love them, but the only ones that I could ever find in the store were like little, like maybe a couple inches, and they look kind of silly when they're little. They don't look cool. And so every time I'd see one, I'd be like, oh my gosh, look, there's a whale fin right there. I really want one. And he'd be like, what? Like, that's so ugly. Like, out of all the plants, that's what you want? I'm like, no, you just have to wait until you see it when it's big. So we walk into the store to go pick up the plants, and there's a whale fin, and I don't say anything. I just go, oh, look at that snake plant. And he goes, that is so cool. it's like over a foot tall. And he was like, that is so cool. And I was like, yeah, isn't it? So cool. And I go, you know what that kind of snake plant's called? And he was like, what? And I was like, a whale fin. And he was like, what? I was like, yes, see? That's why I wanted it, because it looks so cool when it's big. Anyway, so needless to say, we came home with another plant when we went to go pick up the ones we already bought. Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
I need to see that.
Plant people are a different breed of people. They're a whole...
I would kill them. I would kill them.
Yeah.
I used to, and I used to say that all the time, because I'm like, I'm a fake plant person because I killed them. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was like my TikTok or my Instagram was like, listen, she's about to be 32, and that's at an age where we're like, kill her off. Let's make her happy before she dies. You know what I mean? Because like, I'm not gonna live until I'm 40. So they were like, let's just start throwing a couple plant videos in there. And of course, there was like 3 of these people that are like totally my jam. Like, they're super funny, and they like make fun of themselves and like all the things. And it would just be like silly plant videos, you know? And so I just kept watching them. And I was like, you know what? I can't. Like, this is insane. I need every single one of these plants, and I need whatever. So I just got like 3 like little baby ones at Walmart that were like $4 a piece.
Yeah.
And I like had to put them in different pots, and like I was like, oh, I got to make the soil the way they make it, because they said that this kind of soil is better than this kind and whatever. And then I just fell in love with doing it. And then I was like, oh my God. And then I actually read that like planting and like touching soil and stuff releases endorphins, whatever it's called. And so it makes you happy, and like it keeps you busy, just like when people craft, because like humans are meant to like do stuff with their hands and be busy and stuff. So like when people do stuff like that, it makes them happy. And I was like, oh, yeah, again, just gonna make me happy before you kill me off, but like, it's fine.
Whatever.
Speaking of dying, one of you guys sent us something the other day on Instagram about siblings dying. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
That threw me off. I don't remember which one of you guys did it.
It was me. I did it.
I was sitting in bed, and I was like, fuck, thanks. And I've been watching This Is Us. I don't know if you guys know anything about that show.
Yes, it's the worst. Yeah.
I was in a very intense episode, and then I get that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to pause this to like breathe for a second. And then I read that, and I'm like, cool. So basically what it said was like one of your siblings will be at both funerals. One of them will only be at one, and then one of you guys will have nobody at your funeral. And it threw me off so hard, because you don't think about shit like that until someone like says it.
And we're an odd number, so unless we just all, like I said, unless we just all die on the same day,
we're gonna have to plan it. We're gonna be like, okay, listen, it'll be like,
like Thelma
drink
and
the Kool-Aid
Louise
kind of thing,
and their brother.
And their brother,
and their brother.
Oh my gosh! Also, speaking of dying, oh my gosh, why have we had such horrible conversations recently? Stinky the other day was like, would you want to know how you're going to die or when you're going to die? And I was like, well, I would like to not know either. I don't want to know. And he's like, okay, but like you have to choose. And so I'm like sitting there thinking about it, and he's like, hello. And I was like, well, I'm thinking about it because these are very like,
this is very serious.
Very serious. And then I was like, I think I would want to know when, because if I knew how, but I didn't know when, like, let's just say if I die in a car crash, like every time I'm in the car, I'd be terrified. Or like I die from like choking. Anytime I was eating, I would be terrified. Like, I would rather know when. And I was like, and then if I knew like, okay, I'm going to die at 82, and I'm like, I'm going to make those last few years like the best years ever. And like, and I was like, but I don't know that I want to know how. And he was like, I would just have such anxiety knowing I was going to die when, but I didn't know how. And I was like, really? You would rather it be the opposite way?
No, I agree. I would not want to know how.
I think that's a Final Destination thing because we grew up around Final Destination. So like, we know what happens. Like it's death is gonna find you basically. So I saw a video the other day and someone was riding behind one of those trucks that carries logs. And she like stops in the middle of the road and she goes, it's happening. And one of the logs falls off of the onto the road. I hate it. And she she's far enough back that she realized what was happening. I was like, this is the training that we've all gone through. Just days.
Listen.
I'm going around them every time.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. I don't even like going like any kind of. If they're carrying anything that I can see that they're carrying it.
Yeah, no.
I'm done. No. It doesn't even have to just be logs. Yeah.
No, anything. It's like
I hate the ones.
Those, it's like the maintenance guy trucks that have like the ladders on top of them.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Hard pass. No. Hard pass. I will get out of the way to avoid those.
Yes.
I'm not doing that.
Absolutely not. Especially if you're like on the highway. Because I'm like, if that baby falls off and flies at you, like you're dead.
Yes.
Eli has to drive with one on top of his van.
Well, hopefully he straps down good.
Oh, yeah. It's strapped down really well.
I would be like extra checking before I drove anywhere just because I'd be so scared.
Speaking of checking before you go somewhere, I've been watching Dexter. And
oh, really?
He someone gets in their car and then something goes around his throat and it's Dexter behind him with like a rope.
Oh no.
I had to stop watching it for a second. I was like, I have to like breathe. I have to calm myself down because that terrified the fuck out of me so bad. I can't stop watching Dexter though. It's on Netflix.
I know I want to watch it. I've watched like the first like half of the season. It was like years ago. Anyway, so I want to watch it. But you know that urban legend, because you just brought up cars, that was like this girl was driving her car home late at night, and then there was a car behind her that kept flashing their light. Like they would turn their brights on and turn them off. Yeah. And then it turns out that there was a guy in the back of her car, and he would turn the things on every time he would sit up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember where I was coming home from. I guess it doesn't matter, but I was coming home. It was really late. It was just me in the car, and this car getting on the highway, like behind me, and he keeps flashing his brights at me or her. I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm not going under the speed limit. Like, this is Texas. You go at least 90. Not really, but I'm like not driving slow, and I'm like, I'm still in the right lane. Like, if you needed to go, like, anyway, I'm like thinking, am I driving too slow? Like, did I cut him off? I'm like, no, he entered off way behind me. Like, anyway, it was like totally freaking me out. And then I was scared to move lanes because I'm like, what if there's someone in the back of my car and he's turning his brights on so they can stay down there? And so anyway, I was terrified, and I didn't exit until it was like, you know, all the bright lights of like Walmart and like the gas stations and stuff. And I was like, I will exit over here.
I think about that all the time, like more than I probably should. Like, you know, when there's someone behind you and there's like a bump in the road and their headlights are on and it looks like they like flash you with their brights.
Yes.
They hit that bump. every single time that happens, I like look in my back seat real quick to like make sure
Yes.
that there's nothing.
I know. I hate it.
Terrifies me. And this is something that's like I live with, and it's something that I don't know. Now I know where it all came from.
Yeah.
Now I know.
It's horrible.
It's ridiculous.
I hate it.
Yeah, urban legends have stuck with me for a long time. Like probably more than they should.
Yeah.
There's this new show on Netflix. Maybe it's not new. It is new. Have you seen The Dead Boy Detectives?
I've heard of it.
I saw it on Netflix, but I haven't watched it.
I watched 2 episodes the other night, and I was into the third and then had to quit because the kid came in. Yeah. It's really, really good. But the third episode was really hard to watch, and that's the one that I couldn't finish. I almost just stopped it because it was really hard to watch, but it's a really good freaking show. Like, they're
hard
dead.
To watch is like
the
scenario, the scenario that they had in this one, like I can tell you what it is, but basically they're dead. So one of them died in like 1918 and one of them died in like the 1980s, and they're like besties, and they, they're hiding from death because they want to stay earthside and like solve crimes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like supernatural stuff. The third one was about this family. This guy basically like murdered his wife and 2 daughters.
Oh my God.
And so the aunt comes to them and is like, I think the house is haunted, blah, blah, blah. I think there's something going on. I can hear screaming in there. So they go, basically they're on like a loop. And so these people are reliving their murder every single,
my gosh.
And it shows you what he does. And then, so it was like, he killed them and then he shot himself. It was horrible. Oh my God. I was like, this is fucked up. But, and that's the one I haven't finished. So I don't know how it turns out, because they were like trying to get them out of this loop so that they could, move on or whatever. But it's a really good show.
That's the one where you just turn it on like the last 10 minutes so that you can see how it concludes.
Exactly.
But you don't want to know.
I'm like, because you can, they show you and then you can hear it, and they're stuck in the house because they're trying to figure it out. So literally like the lights will go dark, like the house is dead. And then every like couple seconds it'll come back on and it redoes it. Oh, it's sick. Sick.
That's horrible. I hate that.
Speaking of having to turn off shows, I told you I was watching Dexter. I don't know if I'm the only one that noticed this, but for some reason, like they talk about him eating and like him being hungry a lot. And they have full conversations with 2 main characters that they're eating the entire time. And you can hear them eating. It has been driving me insane. And I can't tell if it's just me like being sensitive to it or if it's like a thing. So if anybody out there watches Dexter and has noticed this, please let me know. Because I need to know if I'm crazy or if it's bad. But I noticed it last night when I was watching it, and I was like, I have to figure out what happens. I can't. I have to watch this.
Yeah. It's been so long since I've seen that. I don't know.
It's on Netflix now.
Crazy.
The only reason why I started it. I had to take a break from This Is Us. I take a break from like a super intense drama show to like a serial killer show. Like, that's how my
they're
break
totally
is.
different.
It is.
Well,
it really is.
All the really sad things. I don't know what made me think of this, but you know the movie Seven? So Richard, we had ordered new pots and pans, and he was opening the pots and pans, and Stinky had said something about, oh, what's in there or whatever. And I was like, what's in the box?
What's in the box?
And then Richard was like, why do you say that all the time? And I was like, what? I said, what do you mean? Why do I say that all the time? I was like, the movie Seven. And he was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, have you never seen Seven?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, we were watching it. And I was like, Stinky, you're watching it too. I don't know. That one's kind of gnarly, but he was like, what is it about? And so I was trying to explain it in like little kid terms. And then like some of the things I would just like mouth because the other little kids were there.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to explain it to him. And he goes, so they're like demons? I was like, no, it has nothing to do with
you just
demons.
Have to watch it.
Like, you just have to watch it.
Oh my God. To be fair, like we watched some weird shit when we were kids. So like when people don't really know what we're talking about, sometimes I'm like, okay, that's valid. Like I get it.
Yeah.
I
But I feel like Seven's like a cult classic. I feel like everybody has seen Seven.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I was
We're
trying
20 minutes in. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I know. This is
last thing. I was trying to explain the Dahmer movie to somebody the other day, like the original one that I saw. It has the Hawkeye from the Avengers. What's his name?
Yeah.
Jeremy.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And like I saw a picture of him. I was like, oh, that's Jeffrey Dahmer. And they were like, what? No, that's Hawkeye. And I was like, no, that's Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, what are you talking about?
And they were like, no, that's Evan Peters.
Exactly.
Whatever his name is, yeah.
No, we're in completely different books here. I don't think we can't even find the same page. Anyways, okay. So now that we're 20 minutes into it, we can get into the story. So I texted you guys earlier today because I was reading this script and I feel like I've told something about this story before, but I'm not positive. So I feel like we're going to get halfway through it and you guys are going to be like, yes.
That was literally episode 1. Oh my
gosh.
Yeah. What the
I went back through like all of our history and everything and I couldn't find this name. So hopefully I haven't done this one before. All right. So this guy's name is Donald Henry Gaskins. For some reason, Gaskins is hard for me to say, so I have to say it a lot throughout this script. So just bear with me. He was born in Florence County, South Carolina. He was born to his mother. Her name was Eulea Parrott. There's some very country names in this this story.
I was like, Gaskins. That's
yeah. And it's South Carolina. And okay, so he was the youngest of many kids that his mom had, and all of the kids were illegitimate. So she didn't know who the fathers were for any of the kids. But he was the youngest one. He was also very small for his age. He's always been like a small dude. So he immediately got the nickname Pee-wee. As an adult, he was 5'4" and he weighed around 130 pounds. So he was a very tiny person.
Very little.
Yeah, just in general. So Gaskins' early life was very rough. He suffered a great deal of neglect from his mother and abuse from a male relative. They didn't really say like what was going on, but I feel like you can kind of infer what happened.
Yeah.
His mother apparently took so little interest in him that the first time he ever heard his given name, which was Donald, was the first time he was in court.
Oh my gosh.
He never knew his real name. He always thought his name was Pee-wee.
Oh my God.
Aww.
That's horrible.
So, yeah, it's real fucked up. Gaskins was often described as a great manipulator and a con artist who was street smart and had a keen sense of humor and a friendly and entertaining personality. So he made it work for him. He was really good at talking to people and getting what he needed. When he was 1 year old, Gaskins reportedly drank an entire bottle of kerosene, which gave him convulsions until he was 3 years old.
Oh my
So he's just having full convulsions and seizures, and no one's really doing anything about it.
Oh
basically.
my God.
So sad.
Yeah.
No.
So as a kid, Gaskins started a violent crime spree with a group of kids that were in his neighborhood. So it was just a bunch of like at-risk youth, basically, that were getting together. All of their crimes would include burglaries, assaults, as well as sexual assault. So at the age 13, Gaskins was convicted for assaulting a young woman by hitting her in the head with an axe after she caught him breaking into her family home. Wild.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So he's 13 years old, and this is his first time in court. So this is the first time he hears his real name. He was 13 years old, which is wild.
And he probably was like, "No, I'm sorry, sir. It's Pee-wee."
exactly.
Like, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh.
So for that incident, he was sentenced to 5 years in a reform school, the South Carolina Industrial School for White Boys in Florence. And where he was, apparently sexual assault was very common among the inmates. So he's 13 at this time. So he's going through a lot, and he has been through a lot.
He's also little.
A very small dude. Yeah. So after escaping the reform school and getting married, he voluntarily returned to complete his sentence. Gaskins was released in 1951 at the age of 18.
God.
He briefly worked on a tobacco plantation until he was arrested in 1953 for attacking a teenage girl with a hammer because she allegedly insulted him.
Oh my gosh.
He was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment at the South Carolina Penitentiary. There, Gaskins earned his fellow inmates' respect by killing the most feared man in the prison. This man's name was Hazel Brazel, in which Gaskins claimed it was self-defense. So as a result, Gaskins received an extra 3 years on his prison sentence for involuntary manslaughter.
3 years?
3 years.
Wow.
Okay.
At that point, he was in prison, and he decided, he was like, I am no longer going to be a victim anymore, and this is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to be the aggressor in all of this.
Yeah.
So he escaped from prison in 1955. He escaped by hiding in the back of a garbage truck.
Okay.
So he gets out of prison. He's in South Carolina. He gets out of prison. He goes to Florida. And he got a job working for a traveling carnival.
Oh no. He's a carny. Oh no.
So there
Bob's
are
Burgers.
Basically, yeah. I don't know if like the public really knows about like what goes on like behind the scenes in carnivals. It is a very fucked up situation, and a lot of crazy things happen that people don't know about. So this is just like where he fits in, basically.
Yeah.
So he had escaped from prison, and he's working for this carnival. He was finally arrested. He was remanded in custody, and then he was finally paroled in August of 1961. So he's been in and out of prison since he was 13. Following his release from prison, Gaskins reverted to committing burglaries and fencing stolen property. So fencing is basically like someone would steal it, and then they would bring it to him, and then he would sell it to somebody. So he's like the middleman in between these.
The distributor.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So 2 years after his parole, he was arrested again for the rape of a 12-year-old girl. But he took off before he was awaiting sentencing. So that he's gone now. They don't know where he is. So Gaskins was rearrested in Georgia and sentenced to 8 years in prison. So he was found in Georgia, and for that attempted rape, he was put in jail for 8 years.
You know, I will say there's not been a part, well, except for when I said 3 years, but they've been pretty on it with like getting him and putting him in prison, and like it's not been like, oh, you hit
This
somebody
is also
with a
like,
hammer, 1 year,
Right.
plus parole in 30 minutes, like you know, like it's
He was also a kid at the time, and I think it's like the 50s and 60s, so I'm assuming they were dealing with a lot of like troubled youth is the only word that's coming to my brain, but you know what I mean. So he was in there for 8 years, and he was finally paroled again on November of 1968. Upon his release, Gaskins moved to the town of Sumter, South Carolina, and began working for a roofing company. So Gaskin said that his first non-prison related murder victim was a blonde female hitchhiker who he tortured and murdered in September of 1969 before sinking her body into a swamp.
Oh my God.
This part it's hard for me to read, but this is, so basically he wrote something later about his life. And in his memoirs, he says, all I kept thinking about was that I could do anything I wanted to her.
Oh my God.
No, that's sick.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. So this hitchhiker was to be the first of many that he said that he picked up and killed while he was driving along the coastal highways. So Gaskins classified these victims as coastal killings. So they were a bunch of different people, men and women, that he said he killed purely for pleasure. And he said he did it on an average once every about 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
And he said he would go out hunting to quell the feelings of bothersomeness. So basically he had like this urge to go kill people and it was getting to him. So he was like, I have to go do this, basically.
Okay.
So he said that he tortured and mutilated his victims while attempting to keep them alive as long as possible. He confessed to killing these victims using a variety of methods, including stabbing, suffocation, and mutilation, and even cannibalized some of them.
Oh my God.
So Gaskins later confessed to killing 80 to 90 such victims. Although his statements have been committed, basically they're not sure if he committed any of these coastal killings that he was talking about, because there's no evidence anywhere about anything. So he could just be making all of this up, and it's just kind of like to get his infamy going, I guess.
Yeah.
So he did name 3 other people, and he classified them as serious murders. So the 3 people are, there was a couple named Eddie and Bertie Brown. They were 24 years old and 20 years old. And he murdered them in 1972 and buried them behind the tenant house, whatever that means. And a man named Horace Jones, who was 40 years old, he said that he murdered him in 1974. So he has all of this like big story about what he's doing, and he's killed all these people. He's killed like 90 people, but there's no evidence anywhere of any of it. So the only evidence that they have of any murder from him was the guy who he murdered in jail, and they have record of that because he was in jail.
Yeah.
So there were also 14 other victims that they were able to get information about.
Okay.
So in November of 1970, Gaskins committed his first of a series of confirmed murders, primarily people that he knew, and he killed them for personal reasons. His first confirmed victim was his own niece.
Janice, oh my
God.
Janice Kirby was 15 years old, and her best friend, Patricia Ann Alsbrook, was 17 years old. Both of them he beat to death. So this was a very like personal.
Yeah. Like, why?
He said that he was enraged by their drug abuse, and so that's what he says. But what they think happened was he was trying to sexually assault her friend, and things were wrong.
Yeah.
So they don't really know why or like how it started, but this was the result of it.
Yeah.
So Gaskins claimed to have poisoned Martha Ann Dix Jr., a 20-year-old, in March of 1971 or 1972. So there's a few different reasons why people think he did it. So there's a rumor that Pee Wee was the father of one of her unborn children. So she was pregnant when he killed her.
Oh my God.
So apparently Martha Ann was a drug dealer, and he thought that it's possible that she gave drugs to his niece. And so that's another theory on why he would have killed her. She was basically a lesbian. So she had a wife that she got married to, and she was going to move to Texas. So they think Pee Wee got pissed and possibly killed her for that. But basically, her bones were found in a ditch somewhere around where they were. And they were given to a university to study, and they were misplaced.
No.
What?
So no one really knows what actually happened because all of the evidence is gone.
Misplaced?
Yeah.
What the fuck, people?
This next one is very triggering for me. It's very hard to read, and it's very hard to listen to. So just in case anybody was not ready for this. Gaskins was an overt racist. He raped and drowned Doreen Hope Dempsey, who was 22 years old, and her 2-year-old daughter, Robin Michelle Dempsey, in June of 1973.
Oh my God.
Gaskins had befriended Doreen Dempsey several years prior and was angry upon hearing that she was pregnant for a second time with an African-American man.
Oh my God.
So she was living with some of Gaskins' friends at the time, Johnny Sellers and his brother Carl Sellers, and they were living in South Carolina. So the brothers brought her to Gaskins' house in Prospect, South Carolina, because he told her that we can't take you in while you're pregnant. So like maybe we'll go talk to Pee Wee and see if he can take you in for a little bit while you're pregnant.
Okay.
So he found out while she was staying there that she was having another biracial child. So what he did was he took her and the 2-year-old daughter out into the backyard and drowned them in his pond.
It's horrific.
Oh my God.
So in June of 1974, you guys remember me talking about Johnny and his brother.
Yes.
So in June of 1974, Gaskins shot his friend and criminal associate Johnny Sellers, who was 36 years old, in the back of the head, and stabbed to death Johnny's ex-girlfriend, Jessie Ruth Judy, who was 22 years old. Sellers had come to Gaskins asking for money he was owed, because apparently there was a stolen boat that Gaskins had sold, and he was just trying to get his money from that deal.
Right, okay.
So Gaskins feared that Sellers would reveal Gaskins' involvement in the boat theft and the sale of it, so he shot him.
Oh my God. So
stupid.
This
this just goes to show you how paranoid he is right now.
Yeah.
So Gaskins was involved in an auto theft ring. So apparently there was a big organization that was happening around in South Carolina, and he was involved in a big ring of it. Jessie Judy, who was Sellers' ex-girlfriend, was murdered at the same time because she was a witness to the murder of Johnny. So there's a few more. Silas Barnwell Yates, age 45, was murdered in February of 1975. He had his throat slit in a murder for hire scheme.
Oh my God.
Wow.
There's no MO to any of this. It's all just it's a constant murder spree.
Murder,
yes.
Yeah. The forensics showed This one. The forensics showed that it was a knife, but Gaskins disputed this. Do you want to know what he said it was?
Oh,
He
God.
said that he karate chopped this man and was able to
What?
slit his throat with a karate chop.
What?
What? That's what he's claiming. So
I'm like, you could have like quite literally like, I mean, really effed up his throat or
Yes.
whatever, but
Yeah.
there's no way you just slit it clean
There's
across.
no way. There's no
Exactly.
way.
Yeah.
He
So
karate chopped it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
that's how delulu this man is.
And that like literally sounds like a 13-year-old boy. Like, you know,
Yes.
you're like,
Yeah,
I'll
he
karate
just
chop
never
you.
grew
Yeah.
up. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's oh my God, that's so dumb.
So Yates was in a dispute with his ex-girlfriend, Suzanne Kipper Owens, and she and her new husband, John Owens, had paid Gaskins $1,500 to murder Yates.
$1,500?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
it?
wow.
And he
Yeah.
said, you know what? Yes.
Let's do it. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my
Like,
God.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He was
I
just
trying
looking
to
for an
think-
excuse at that point.
Yeah, this is like it's 1975, so $1,500 is like a lot of money at that time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's just
But not enough. No.
Thank
No, no, there's not a dollar amount on that. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah. No.
No.
All right. So Diane Bellamy Neely was age 25 and was separated from her husband, Walter Neely, who was one of Gaskin's closest friends and a criminal co-conspirator. On April 10th of 1975, Gaskins stabbed to death Diane Bellamy and shot her boyfriend, Avery Leroy Howard. Among the reasons Gaskins murdered Diane was because she threatened to call the police. Because apparently Gaskins was opening his home to underage teenagers so that they can have sex.
What?
Oh my gosh.
So he's basically letting teenagers come in and out of his house so that they can have sex.
So he's a big old perv, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So she threatened to out him, and he killed her.
I'm like, why would you not have just gone? Like, why would you threaten it? Just go.
Right.
Just do
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Avery Howard was murdered because he asked for money to pay for attorneys. So Avery is one of his friends who's like involved in all of this like car theft and everything like that. So he's just asking for help to pay for attorneys, his legal expenses, everything. And Gaskins got worried that Avery was going to turn him in, so he killed him.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I mean,
this is horrific.
Yeah.
Literal freaking idiot.
There's no like rhyme or reason to this. It's just because he was scared.
Well, and I'm like, you know what's going to solve them not tattling?
Exactly.
If you murder them. If he shows up murdered.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, you're just stupid.
How you gonna wake up dead?
I'm going to wake up.
I've been watching the scary movies. I can't stop.
Wake up dead.
All right. So back to the sad parts. Kim Gelkin. She was 13 years old. And she was stabbed to death because she was telling police that Gaskins moved her from North Charleston without her permission to basically he kidnapped this girl from another like county and is keeping her in his house she's basically a sex slave. And she's 13 years old.
13, oh my God.
So she threatened to go to the cops, and so he killed her. The next one is Dennis Bellamy, who was 27 years old, and John Henry Knight, who was 15 years old. they were half brothers, and Diane Bellamy, the woman who he murdered earlier, was their sister. So,
Wow.
within minutes of each other, Gaskins shot the two brothers in the back of the head on October 10th of 1975. Gaskins had promised to pay Dennis for some stolen guns. So they go over, and Bellamy and Gaskins start to get into it because he's supposed to be giving them money. And he's like, you know what? Okay, this is where the guns are. Just come with me. And so he leads them to this like little patch behind his trailer of the woods, and he shoots him. And then he calls his brother over, and he's like, hey, like, come over here. Like, we need to talk to your brother. And so he kills the 15-year-old as well.
Oh my God. So many children. Like,
yeah, it's a lot. So the next one is Rudolph Tyner. He was 23 years old, and he was on death row in CCI prison on March of 1978. He was there for a double murder. So Tyner was appealing his own death sentence at the time because he had been convicted of robbing a convenience store, like a local convenience store, and he killed two people while he was robbing the convenience store. So those two people's son, Tony, hired Gaskins for $2,000 to kill Tyner while he was in jail.
Oh my Lord.
Are we following? So he was hired again to kill somebody.
Wow.
So Tony, the person who hired him, asked Gaskins to kill him. And Gaskins says, okay, I need you to take some C4 and put it into the heel of a shoe. And then you're going to mail me the shoes.
Okay.
So he gets C4 and he puts it into the heel of the shoe and mails it to Gaskins. So this way, Gaskins obtained plastic explosives with a blasting cap. So there's a long wire and a radio speaker to make it look like it's a radio. He takes it to Tyner and says, hey, can you just check this for me? And he puts it in his ear and plugs it in. And it explodes.
Oh my gosh.
So he blew up this dude while he was in jail. And he was hired, and it was a $2,000 killing, which is insane to me.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, okay. So you hired him to kill somebody because he killed somebody?
Yes. So
you're going to pay a murderer to kill a murderer. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gaskins was arrested on November 14th of 1975 when a criminal associate named Walter Neely confessed to the police knowledge of Gaskins' killings of Dennis and his brother, Johnny. So the last two people that he killed, the guy was like, no, I know about this. And he told the police. So Neely confesses to the police that Gaskins confided in him that he had killed several people during the past 5 years, but he wasn't able to tell them where they were buried, except for one. So on December 4th of 1975, Neely led the police to land near Gaskins' home, and they were able to find 8 bodies.
Oh my goodness.
So Gaskins was tried on one charge of murder in May 24th of 1976 and found guilty on May 28th and sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life in prison without parole because in South Carolina, they basically were trying to get with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had a bunch of guidelines for the death penalty, and at that time, South Carolina had to stop the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just in jail. So on September 2nd of 1982, the murder that he committed with the C4 in jail, it earned him the title, the meanest man in America.
Oh, okay.
And you know he loved that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes me hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Never calling him that.
So the guy that hired him to kill the man in jail, he was charged with murder, but pled guilty, so he got a lesser charge. And he was only sentenced to 8 years in prison. So he hired Gaskins for murder and was sentenced to 8 years for it. He was paroled. Yeah, he was paroled in 1986. So he really wasn't. It wasn't really anything for him. Gaskins initially made several unsuccessful attempts to kill Tyner, the guy who he blew up in jail. He said that he was trying to poison him this entire time. So I don't know what he was. It doesn't say like what he was giving him, but he said he was trying to poison him and it wasn't working. So he was like,
okay.
I'm just going to blow him up, which is the next logical step.
Logical thing obviously. You do,
yeah. So he would later go on to saying that the last thing that Tyner ever heard was him laughing, which is sadistic. That's fucked up.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So Gaskins was tried for Tyner's murder and sentenced to death. It was the first time in history of South Carolina that a white man was sentenced to death for the murder of a black man, which is crazy to me.
That's insane.
Wow.
This is 86, and it's the first time.
That's sad.
Yeah. So while on death row, Gaskins said that he had committed over 100 to 110 murders, including one girl who was a 13-year-old girl who was the daughter of a senator in South Carolina.
Oh, that's not good.
So he says that he did it, but there's no evidence. Nobody knows. So all of his murders, except for the ones that they had hard evidence on, were obviously disputed very heavily. So nobody really knows at this point. So Gaskins was executed on September 6th of 1991 at 1:10 a.m. in the electrical chair. Hours before, he was found in his cell, slitting his wrists, trying to kill himself. And they still took him to the electric chair. His last words were, I'll let my lawyers talk for me. I'm ready to go." And those were his last words.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And that's Pee-wee.
Oh my
That's
Lord.
Disgusting.
That was the worst thing ever.
So this one really fucked with me. It's very who am I thinking of? It's Ted Bundy, Ed Gein. There's like a bunch of different serial killers mixed into one. Like he didn't really, you know, he's very similar to a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
It's just wild to me.
It's crazy.
So wild.
And it was just he seems so like, I mean, I know this is going to sound horribly rude, but he just seemed like dumb, you know?
Yeah.
And like the way that he just got away with all of that. Like
yeah. So basically my theory on it is that he wanted to be this kind of like hard ass serial killer type person, which like technically he was, but when he killed people, it was always for a reason. So he thought, and so there wasn't any kind of like MO behind it or anything like that. And he's like, okay, so that people don't think that I'm just like flying off the handle and like I'm gonna say that I did all this other shit too. So I don't know if it was just like trying to get his name. Like he realized that he would get attention when stuff like this happened because he was completely neglected when he was a child.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
Jeez.
it was almost a cry for attention at that point.
Or I wonder if he thought, like, if I get famous from this, they won't kill me or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
Yeah. I mean, South Carolina in the 50s, 60s, and early 80s, like, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, oh my gosh.
Good job.
That was a crazy story, yeah.
Thanks.
I don't think we've heard that, so good job.
No, yeah, I've never heard that before, so you're good.
I think what it was like, there's been a few stories that I've told where, like, a killer, something happens to them, and at a certain point, they, like, make the conscious choice to say, I'm not going to be the victim anymore, and I'm going to aggress this, which is exactly what happened. And I think that's what kind of stuck in my head, because there's been a few stories that have happened that I've told.
Right.
Yeah. Who knows?
That's nutso pants.
But yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hate him.
Yeah.
That was
I'm always just going to call him Pee-wee, but I'm not going to call him whatever. What was it? The most dangerous man or something?
I can't even remember. But
most dangerous man in America.
The meanest man in America.
The meanest man.
Yeah. Which gave me Charles Bronson vibes. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he like in Britain, he would get arrested and he would just make it his job to fight everybody. Nobody's job was easy when they were around him. He was like, if you're going to put me in here and I have to stay in here, it's not going to be easy for you. And that's what it was. So that's what it was kind of like giving me, but it's wild.
I would totally be like that too, though.
Right.
Yeah. At that point, like, what do you have to lose? You know?
Yes. Yeah. If anybody wants to see it, there's a movie. It's called Bronson, and it explains the whole story of the man. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's Pee-wee.
That's nutso pants. I don't like him.
I saw the name, and I was like, I know I've heard this before. And then I started reading it, and I was like, I don't think I've heard this before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Wow. Okay.
Good job. Oh my
gosh.
Yes.
That was a lot of information.
Made me angry.
Exactly.
Made me laugh a little bit. That's just a full, all these emotions.
All the emotions. All the emotions.
I'm like, what is this?
All right. Well, Storm, if they want to hear more of us, where can they find us?
We are on Facebook, Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. We are on Instagram at 3swib podcast. Go on there, like, comment, do all the things. Also, please rate and review. It's super, super, super helpful for us. YouTube, go on, watch us on YouTube. And yeah.
Well, that's what happens when three siblings walk into a bar.